What kind of,
I know that is.
yeah, North Cloverdale.
Yeah. It's across from the car dealerships.
All the meetings order at 1:30. This is the meeting of the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee for City of Cloverdale. A roll call, we'll go around the table and let everyone introduce themselves. My name is Todd Lands. I am the current mayor of Cloverdale.
Gus Walker, council member.
Good afternoon, City Manager David Kelly.
Kevin Thompson, Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director.
Vivian Holmes, Finance Director. Shirley Davis, Public.
Beautiful.
And Chair Mayor, I just want to note that Chief Parker is attending the Chiefs Conference, so he may sign on, but I excused absence today.
Perfect, thank you.
Chiefs Conference, huh?
Chiefs Conference. All right, we'll move into public comments. This is the chance for the public to speak on any item that is not listed on the agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. This
there,
is yours.
there are two things. One, I don't know what you call it, but the markings on the street, by Plank, on the corner where there's, Eagle Tech.
Mhm.
Is it possible to paint crosswalks? You don't need a stop sign, just crosswalks so cars know that people are actually crossing that street. And the other thing is, I don't know if this has happened when you've been there, Gus, but the markings where you park along the street, you can't see them anymore. So this one woman came in to Plank and said, who parked their truck out there that's way over the white part and, all this stuff. And then another guy, about a week or two later, did the same thing. So when they can't see the markings, so, they park kind of over it or below it, and then you can't get as many cars in, so.
Like, the ones that look like a white T on the ground.
Yeah, right, I don't know what they're called, but I don't know, if it's possible to do that. And the other thing I was hoping that the police chief was here, is that when they do the police reports, can they be a little bit more descriptive, because they had these codes, and I don't know what they mean. But if you want an example, you can look at the Healdsburg police law. Perfect example. You understand it and like, wow, that's what's happening. That was just my two things.
Perfect. I've got them all written down. So
Thank you.
yeah, I can go through them and see what we can do about it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Of course.
Can I stay for the rest?
You can do anything you want. Wide open to you. Yeah.
And
You can, there is.
Mayor,
Comment, talk bad, whatever you want to do.
can you real quickly on the parking and the crosswalks, that is something that we, I think is on the agenda for Public Works, and facilities. I can certainly
Oh,
let Ms. Davis know, and the agenda is available. There will be the next meeting, I think, is the 28th.
okay, I'll look it up online. I'll get it.
Check the date, and our Public Works Director can give you an update, because I know that it's something that's been discussed, and the plan
Okay.
was to get some additional striping done for the parking spaces on the boulevard. The crosswalks are a little more challenging in that location.
Oh, they are?
But we can discuss with it.
Okay,
We also have Community Unity Day coming up with the school. And they are asking for any projects that they can help with. So that might be something that we.
It would be in mind.
Kids that can paint lines.
When is that? Not, May or even?
In May, early May.
I must say that when they painted the curbs, the red, that's really very helpful. Because some of this stuff fades out and,
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
good.
And little things make a difference.
And it's a good project for them too. I think it's great.
As long as they don't go writing their initials on tiny blocks.
Okay,
All right. So thank you, David, for doing that. So you're gonna refer those or bring them to the Public Works Subcommittee.
Yeah, but the parking and crosswalk,
Since it's already being discussed there, it's great.
but the police report law, we certainly apprise the chief and see if there's an opportunity that.
it just happens just take a look at Healdsburg.
Well, it usually happens because when cops write things for cops, it's
Yeah, right,
very black and white and numbers are involved.
right. And I can figure out some of them, but
Oh, okay.
some I don't.
We have another item for us.
Absolutely.
We got a couple.
Totally makes sense. Okay, no other members of the public, so we'll move on to D, community approval of minutes. We have the December 4th, February 5th, and March 4th minutes. Do we have anyone who can make a motion?
I'm happy to move approval.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Anyone against it? Seeing none, all pass. Moving to E, new business. E1, Tefra, Alexander Valley Apartments. David, you wanna?
Yeah, I'll introduce this item and I'm gonna promote Mr. Anthony Stubbs here as a panelist. Let's see if I can promote him here and see if we can join. We received a request from the Alexander Road Apartment Project, or I call it Austin Road Apartment Project, to hold a hearing to consider financing for the project. Again, the project is a 75 unit affordable housing project. The city is a member of an entity referred to as the California Municipal Finance Authority, or CMFA. They issue tax exempt bond financing to developers for certain types of projects, including affordable housing projects. The request is by Pacific West Communities is to have our city council hold a public hearing and to adopt a resolution that would enable the project to complete their application with CMFA for municipal bond financing. So I'll just kind of pause there and let's see if
Can you hear me? I was able to join.
Stubbs is here. Mr. Stubbs, can you see us on your camera?
I can, yes.
Okay, so we're joined by our mayor and chair, Todd Lands, as well as Councilmember Gus Walter. So if you want to provide a little bit of a background and overview and introduce yourself, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'm Anthony Stubbs with the California Municipal Finance Authority. And as already mentioned, CMFA was established to help municipalities, 501c3s, other charitable organizations with the issuance of both taxable and tax exempt debt. This project here, anytime the use of tax exempt bonds is being used, we are required by federal law to hold what is called the TEFRA hearing, TEFRA approval. That stands for Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act. And basically it's just a transparency thing so that we can announce to the public that we're accessing tax exempt bonds for this project and let them know it's for a qualified purpose, which is in this case affordable housing. And then a resolution needs to be approved by an elected official or city council that says that they're okay with the CMFA coming in and issuing these bonds. The TEFRA hearing and the issuance of the bonds in no way obligates the city with any repayment or any issuance fees or anything like that. It's a private financing, and the only reason we hold this TEFRA hearing is, like I say, to be transparent to the public, let them know that it's for a qualified purpose. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have or.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us today. And I just have a couple questions. The project in itself was really not well received by the community, which is was expected. But I'm just wondering, if the city doesn't step forward and help do this, I want the project to go forward, but what is the enticement for us to do this? I guess is the question. Is it possible that we could have a bigger playground on that property, that you could help with some of the infrastructure along the street? As opposed to just submitting the plans as they are now and going ahead with that type of instruction. It is a little tight. There's 75 dwellings on how many acres? I think it's 3, maybe 4.
3.4, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we have to sacrifice the quality of life, and what we're putting people into. But your thoughts on that? And the city requests some additional improvements to the property?
Yeah, sorry, I thought that these questions would be regarding the TEFRA hearing. So the questions you're asking are better suited for the developer. I couldn't really opine on that. The project itself, the approval of the project, the zoning and planning and everything is totally separate from this TEFRA hearing. The TEFRA hearing is simply to approve
The
the
financing
financing portion of this. So, yeah, I don't know how to address your question as far as adding to the project or having the project pay for other.
All right, and then secondly, I guess, the city would be reimbursed for its expenses.
Yeah, so the CMFA's policy is to share a portion of our issuance fee with the host municipality. So in this, if we share 25% of our issuance fee, in this case, that was estimated to be approximately $12,000, 12,500-ish. So hopefully that would more than compensate for any work put into the planning and carrying out of the TEFRA hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Todd Lands. I have a question for you. The first one I have is, do cities not go through this process? Has anyone ever said no?
We've never had anybody say no. There are a couple of cities, where there's County of LA and San Jose, where they don't allow an outside issuer to come in and issue. They have their own departments that actually do that. So there is that, but where we are acting as the issuer, we've never had a city or county refuse to hold the TEFRA hearing. Like I said, it's not approving the project in any way. It's
Okay.
just saying we're aware of this financing that's happening and that it is for a qualified purpose, which is affordable housing.
So that kind of answers the what if is, what if we don't do this? Do they still get their financing or have the ability to? And can still move, or does this kill the project?
It does kill the project, unfortunately, because in order to be able to issue these tax exempt these bonds, a TEFRA hearing has to take place.
Because you were right, guys, that this is not a well-received project in a horrible area, and
Well,
I don't want to be the one that has my name written all over it because the state has already threatened to sue us, but.
well, Mr. Mayor, let me say I'm in favor of a project there. I'm not quite sure that's the size I'd like to see. And I realize it has to be able to pencil out, but, we just start shoving people in sardine cans and, the quality of life is diminished to some extent. There's a ton of improvements that have to be done on Nasty Road for the kids to walk to school. There's not enough parking spaces that are there. So, we'd love to see affordable housing, but it's gotta be the kind of housing.
Has there been meetings with the developer at all? Anybody meet with them?
I'm gonna leave that open to staff. As far as I know, and it's been a while ago since we've looked at this item. As far as I know, it's pretty much etched in stone. They're gonna do what they wanna do. Because it's state approved.
Yeah, the project went through, 2 planning commissions and
Right.
city council as well, so. We had several meetings that were contentious and, it's affordable housing, so we were. Obligated really to approve it, so.
Our hands were tied, basically, Anthony, to be honest. Like I said, we were threatened with lawsuit from the state if we did not approve the affordable housing project. So we don't have a say. We go through the motions that they tell us we must do.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the questions about what if we don't do this? And then is that gonna turn around and get us sued? I don't know. And do we have to do this based upon our vote with the city council? I mean, should it even be here? I don't know.
Well, we can certainly, there is a public hearing that's been scheduled, for the April 10th council meeting. Obviously, we wanted to bring him here for this, for the subcommittee, for kind of the two-touch principle, but also, to garner the feedback of the subcommittee. We can certainly, in the intervening time, ask our attorney to weigh in on this and whether there's an obligation to approve the financing or not, and what are the potential liabilities associated with that.
What was the date of the public hearing that you already tentatively have scheduled?
April 10th. The next city council meeting.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see Alex give us some reference on this.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think anybody on the council or in city staff does not want to see affordable housing.
Nope.
Like I said, it's just 75 homes on 3 acres, and I shouldn't say homes, residences on 3 acres with hardly any parking whatsoever. And it's just not conducive in that area. But with some adjustments, I think it could be done rather nicely. So that's my feeling. I'd like to see Alex's opinion on this.
I would as well, because I mean, I don't want to beat the dead horse here, but we literally have 75 units going in on the side of a highway next to railroad tracks that are all sandwiched in between a freeway with no lighting, no crosswalks, no sidewalks,
Small playground.
very small playground, and a long distance walk for kids to school when that's workers class housing basically, and they're going to have nowhere to park. And so you're lining a highway with cars now. There's just so many problems with this project that I don't feel safe with it. However, we can't say no. That's why this is where we have to dig our heels in, or can. Maybe this is what we do.
Understood. I know some of the decision made by council was based on the interpretation of the state housing law, to what extent that extends to this decision, and council doesn't want to authorize it, then that's within your purview, and have to understand what the risk is to us. And, you know, it could be, we'll have to ask our city attorney to weigh in on that. So, but I think it's clear that if council doesn't approve it, the project will not have financing, will not move forward. So it'd be kind of a denial of sorts.
Is there a time frame on this that we have to have it done for the public hearing?
They were, yeah.
Prior to,
Maybe.
yeah, prior to closing the financing, which has a deadline with the state, of June 3rd.
So if we don't do it, the public hearing on April 10th, it could be put off until the second meeting. If
Yeah.
Alex came back, or if Alex came back and said, no, you have to do this, then it stays on the April 10th. I mean, that's kind of what I would say, is give the direction to let Alex make that decision.
And we can certainly leave it on the 10th with the recommendation that if, to just continue the public hearing to a date certain, if needed.
That would be the preference, because they did put a notice in the paper stating April 10th, so we can just have it and then you continue it to a date certain, as my favorite said.
Cart before the horse.
Yeah.
That's like state strong arm. Okay, anything else on that from anyone?
So I think the direction is for staff to consult with a city attorney on associated with the whether there's a requirement to adopt a resolution approving the financing package through the California Municipal Financing Authority.
Yeah, and do we have a right to negotiate at that point? You know.
I would probably just make sure that whatever the amount is would also cover bond counsel for the city.
Yeah, because 12,000 goes really fast.
Yeah.
And we're not involved with the bond council, right, Anthony?
Right.
We don't issue the bonds, this is just a private.
Or a conduit.
Yeah, we're,
Right, but to
Right.
do this, do it, well, in the past, when I've done it, we used bond counsel to represent the city as well.
So then we would want to make sure that any bond counsel the city had to use was paid for by CMFA. Correct. Does that sound right?
That's what I would think.
It would be, well, any cost would be passed on to the actual borrower, the developer, but yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Anyone? Public? Nothing? You have an
Well,
opportunity.
the only question I have is why, the state, why do they have these specifications that you have? I mean, there must be a reason. Is it addressing low income housing?
Forcing more of the housing, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we need it, right?
But the problem is,
The right location.
yeah,
Right. And the right number, depending on the impact of the community, right?
Yeah, the public hearing, just to answer your question, Ms. Davis, is actually a requirement, as I understand it, of the Internal Revenue Code, of 1986, it's section 142A7. So it's because these are federal bonds, so I think Mr. Stubbs is alluding it's a matter of transparency and
Right,
just
that's
making
what you
sure that the
mentioned.
community understands where the financing is coming from for this particular project.
Okay. Thank you.
It's,
good.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
All right, E2, audited financial statements.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna promote our auditor, Mr. Terry Creek. He will be joining us via Zoom. Terry, if you can hear me, I authorize promoting you to panelist, so hopefully it looks like you'll be joining the webinar, and while he works to join us, just a quick overview of this item. Included in the packet is the list of financial statements for the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2023. So we're now about 10 months away, or 9 months away since the last fiscal year ended. And upon completion of the fiscal year, we routinely prepare an audit of the financial statements for that year. This was the first year that Mr. Krieg has served kind of the second term of being the auditor for the city of Cloverdale. We really appreciate having Terry back. We've over the last, gosh, I think starting in about November, we kickstarted this effort. And there's quite a bit to the audit, and there's some, as always, there's some additions to the audit that are reflective of either state or federal law, and Mr. Creed can touch on those, but in my opinion, the audit is a reflection of our financial position. There's some key topics that Mr. Creed will discuss, including fund balance and net position. The draft statements that were included when the agenda went out last week. There were some minor updates, and those updates were saved for your review. And then I also just want to kind of point your attention to the item in your packet referred to as the auditor letter to those charged with governance. I think that provides a really good overview of the auditor's perspective on our financial statements. There is one additional piece that needs, well, two additional pieces that will need to be added prior to going to council. That will be what's called the management discussion and analysis, or MD&A, that is prepared by our finance director, Susie Holmes, and she's working on completing that for inclusion in the final packet. And there's also a statement from our city attorney that we're working on that will reflect the requirements of our city attorney's office in this process. So with that, Terry, I'll turn it over to you to provide us an overview. You're joined by Mayor and Chair Todd Lance, as well as Council Member Gus Walter.
Good to have you back, Terry. Oops.
See.
You're on mute, Terry.
There you go.
Okay. Well, anyway, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm happy to be able to come back and serve as Cloverdale's independent auditor. I thought it might do is just give you an overview of what's in your June 30, 2023 audited financial statements. I'll probably start with page 13 and 14, and that kind of is the presentation of the city as if it were a private business. It's what they call government-wide financial statements, which provides a statement of net position of the entire city, all funds combined, as well as a statement of activities. And there was some a significant change in the overall net position of the city in 2023. Actually, there was about a $5.8 million net increase in the city's overall net position. That was really caused by a couple of things. One was the $1.5 million recovery fund award and $3 million in impact fees that the city received in fiscal 2023. Those are kind of like one-time events. So for 2023, it was unusual and probably won't be such a large increase in 2024. In terms of your actual governmental funds, they're on pages 15 to 17. Here again, there was an overall $4.8 million net increase in the combined fund balances. And there were three things that gave rise to that change in fund balances. And that was, of course, the impact fees again, but also the inflow of a portion of the financing lease proceeds, as well as the sale of some affordable housing land for the affordable housing project of about $1.5 million. Again, these are all basically one-time events. In terms of your business type enterprises, your water, your wastewater, and your airport enterprise, overall, they also had positive operating results with a net increase of about $1.7 million for fiscal 2023, all of those enterprises combined. Again, the impact fees, about 1.36 million, accounted for a large part of that positive increase. Then moving on to the successor agency, overall that fund's deficit went down to about $2.4 million in fiscal 2023, and a good portion of that was caused by the new provision in the refunding bonds that required, I think, upfront funding of tax allocation monies to the extent of, I think, about 3 future funding cycles, which increased significantly the amount of funds that were allocated by the county to the successor agency. On an overall basis, at June 30 of 2023, I think the successor agency had about $3.47 million in cash, and that's because of this new funding requirement. The rest of the report, pages 34 through 58, really includes note disclosures, some budget to actual statements, some pension and other post-employment benefits, and some combining statements for all of your other governmental funds. And probably the most significant thing on an overall basis that's reflected in your financial statements for fiscal 2023 is the new financing lease that amounted to, it was $7,042,000 in proceeds to basically modernize the metering system in the water enterprise and some other energy-related project as well. That's pretty much a summary overview of what's in your 2023 fiscal financial statements. There are other reports I have provided to you. A report on internal control over financial reporting. There were no negative findings or findings at all in that report. Your staff does do an excellent job of maintaining your accounting records and your financial management system. I also provided you with a management letter, which had some observations and suggestions that you may want to consider in the future. And of course, this letter to the city council about the conduct of the audit and more of the information on significant highlights that are reflected in your financial statements. That's pretty much it on an overall summary basis. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have if I can.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, you're welcome.
Gus, you want to go?
Terry, it's good to see you back with the city again.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
I just wanted to ask you and Susie about TOT audits. If we've done one of those lately on some of our lodging establishments. And then secondly, about Airbnb, do we have any of them that are actually submitting TOT tax to us?
So the TOT audits are actually done by each, avenue. They do all of our TOT, they collect our revenue and do the audits. I don't have detail on what was the most recent one that they did. No, I'm doing it backwards, aren't I? HCL does the TOT, I'm so sorry. And we've done 2 and we're in the process, we've done 3 actually, and in the process of 1 more. We did 2 last year, we're doing 2 this year. 1 is completed, 1 is in process. For Airbnb, I don't know the answer off the top of my head, I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. And the reason I asked about Airbnb is I have a friend that's coming out to visit us in May. And she sent me she wanted to know her opinion on, our opinion on this one Airbnb within a 2-minute walk to the History Center. And I'm scratching my head because the name wasn't listed. And you had to do everything by email. I was just wondering what residence that is. But anyhow, that was all I had. Yeah.
Those tend to be, to your question, Gus, about Airbnbs, those are only permitted right now in commercial zones. So if there is a enterprise that's not in the appropriate zone, it usually becomes a code enforcement matter.
I think what, about 6 months ago, Kevin, that we went through this, right? I mean, you probably have a
We
little more
did.
information on this.
We've been asked by our code enforcement if they want us to do, I'll look through Airbnb and VRBO to see if there's any that aren't in the commercial areas. We haven't gone forward with that yet. There was one in your neighborhood, Gus, that we did send them a letter. So we don't allow them in, like David said, only in commercial areas, but we do have some. We have a handful. There's probably 5 or 6 of them that are operating. And I don't know, we have to check the TOT and to make sure they're paying it, but I don't think we do full-blown audits on just the individual house Airbnbs.
Well, I checked with Claudia, and it's not her, and I was thinking maybe it's a new establishment here on the corner of 3rd and Cloverdale Boulevard,
Both of those, yeah, there's some in there too.
Kobe House, so, yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Terry.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't do the TOT audits, so I really couldn't speak to that.
I must have missed that memo.
That's okay. It's not like you don't have a lot of paper crossing your desk. I understand.
Go ahead, David.
Mayor, I was gonna ask if it's okay with you, ask Mr. Creek to, I know in his letter, he refers to a increase in the pension tax revenue and maybe, I mean, from the city perspective, I think that's really positive news. And I know from your perspective, Terry, you're just looking at the dollar amounts, but maybe you could touch on that just a bit.
I'm sure I'm not quite understanding what you're referring to.
That the increase in the well, there's two things. One, there's reference to the $700,000 favorable change in the city's pension and OPEB obligations. So
Oh, yes. Those pension and OPEB obligations, they fluctuate greatly from year to year. And when the pension funds, as well as the OPEB, well, you don't really have a trust for your OPEB. The OPEB is strictly related to the changes in the actuarial evaluation, because your particular plan, the city has chose not to fund that particular plan. But in terms of the pension plan fluctuates greatly from year to year, primarily because of the, well, two things: the actuarial assumptions, and of course the investment earnings by the PERS in the cost sharing plan. When they have a very good year and have a good rate of return in the cost sharing pool, then that causes your overall pension liability to go down. When the investment earnings in the cost sharing pool decline, then it usually has a significant impact on increasing your pension liability from year to year. There's really nothing that the city can do to control those fluctuations, because it's really, for the most part, contingent upon the financial performance of the investments that CalPERS makes in the cost sharing pool.
Gotcha. So this year we saw a favorable change to the tune of 700,000, but potentially next year we could see it flip the other way.
That's correct.
And the other retirement matter that I was touching on was this is on page 3 of your letter. You referenced the special retirement fund in the fiscal year with 1.52 million fund balance.
Oh, yes.
After receiving $400,000 in additional tax revenue. And is there anything you wanted to add, any detail on that?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think the city had a separate audit conducted of the allocation of the tax revenues to the city of Cloverdale by another individual firm. And their findings were that apparently the county had been under allocating tax revenues to the city of Cloverdale. So I think the end result was somewhere in excess of $400,000 in additional tax revenues were made available to Cloverdale in fiscal 2023 as a result of that particular project. That was a good move on the part of the city to have someone take a look at that, because obviously it generated an additional $400,000 in tax revenues that you should have been getting all along.
Right. There was a residual tax that we, if you remember all that.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah, David went over with it this morning as well. So
Okay, perfect.
I like it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah.
So Mayor and Chair and Councilmember Bolter, our plan would be to bring this forward at your next council meeting on April 10th. Similar presentation overview. I think I've asked Susie just maybe to do kind of a summary of bullet points, just to highlight some of the key points for the council as well as the community. Otherwise, it's all contained in the audit itself, but I want to acknowledge, I know this is we have a small team, and usually the audit takes a lot of staff to put it together. But our finance director and our finance analyst are responsible for providing all the documentation to Mr. Creek. So they did a lot of work to be able to bring this forward. And of course, thank Terry for all the work he did in completing the audit and being able to bring it forward. And it's always great when there's a positive financial information as well. So I think from what I see is, our fund balance is in really strong position. Continues to grow, with the cautionary note that, some of that money is in the fund balance is ARPA money that the council has obligated. There's still, it's dedicated for the purposes the council approved. So when we do move forward with those expenditures, that will lessen the fund balance. But overall, it's a very healthy fund balance.
And the majority of them were one-time revenues, right? So, yeah.
Which is kind of my worry going forward.
Yeah.
I know that I've always said, I don't care how you get in the black, just be in the black, it makes me happy, I won't question you. So thank you guys for that, I'm gonna start with that. But moving forward, I wanna make sure that we can stay in it, and when you're talking a lot of money that's coming from developer fees, one-time money. And we're sitting here looking at, we spent 1.7 in excess. So I wanted to make sure that we have a way to control that in the future so that our fund balance doesn't disappear in 2 years. Yeah. And so just a couple of questions, I don't know the answer to this. Under expenditures on our normal funds, if you look at the page, I can tell you it's page 16 of their 16 or our 11 of the final.
Got it, David?
So under expenditures on planning, there's 912, almost 913,000. What does that consist of? Is that Vanessa and our planner and what else?
Yeah, so that would be, planning is, I would think, planning, and so it'd be community development is gonna be the portion of Kevin's salary that's allocated to planning, portions of his salary, of course, are allocated to other functions. Rafael, but also a building. So that's gonna be our costs for consulting big building staff. And then there's portions, I think, of public works time, small allocation in
There
there.
might be a small allocation, but code enforcement as well.
Because I'm looking for ways to, we're gonna have to, I mean, when I see this, I always look for the things in parentheses and see 1.689 million in excess. So how do I take that out of your expenditures above?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's,
Yeah, and I think,
I always read these backwards. I start with the finding of the negative. Okay, now how do I change it?
Do we get reimbursed on any of that?
yeah, you do. And there's maybe
That's what I
Terry
don't
can,
know, so
Yeah,
Terry could maybe point where I know there's a sheet that shows expenses and then revenue for those departmental functions, and I just can't remember what page it's on.
Let's see here. I think it's, page 47 has a little more detail about the general fund in particular. Yeah, the planning includes your planning commission, your current planning, long range, and some engineering and building services and plan checking as well. So I could see with those expenses, especially plan checking, as your development activity goes down, I would anticipate your plan checking and inspection services expenditures would also eventually go down.
and show what the revenue associated with
Yes,
those inspections.
we do charge for a lot of them, kind of point is.
Okay,
And a lot of Kevin's time is charged for like developers and things like that. too.
right. So a lot of that does wash out.
Yeah.
Okay. So you see what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always looking for a
I
high
do.
number, take it out, say, okay, what is it? How can we take a little bit out?
Yeah.
And so just keep that in mind. 'Cause I know we're gonna do budget goals coming up, but
This is, I think, page 47, as Terry pointed out,
Yeah,
is
that's
a
great.
really helpful breakdown, because
I
you
missed that
see
one.
city council, city manager, clerk. And so you get to see by each departmental function, obviously our biggest expenditure is public safety, so that's typically where cities see the highest costs is in the police department, and then follow that by public works. In our case, parks and recreation. Again, a lot of our public works expenses are embedded in our wastewater and water enterprises, so they'll be reflected there.
That's good.
And then up above, of course, on that same slide, gives you the budget amounts for the key revenue sources. And it shows you, for instance, on property, we budgeted 2.9 million.
What patients are you?
This is page 47.
Okay.
But the actual amount received was $3,315,940. So we had a variance, in this case, positive variance of 415,000 during that fiscal year. So we, to a certain extent, you could say we underestimated the amount of property taxes. I think we tend to be a little more conservative, and I think we're trying to follow council's directions.
Back to work.
I
like that.
You can see, just going down the line there, sales tax, again, one of our next more significant revenue sources. The budget was 1,354,000, and we were 82,000 short.
But your audit that you guys did and push on the TOT helped a lot. So it's $146,000 difference.
Right.
I know you estimated low, but I know you went out and got at least 30,000 from one person that wasn't documenting correctly, so.
Yeah. To me, the most significant aspect, especially in looking at the fund balance on the revenue side at top, where you see charges for services. And, we estimated, 1.3 million, our actual amounts were 960,000. So we overestimated what those charges were for. That could be for a couple of reasons. One, it may be one we might argue we are not being as aggressive as we should at collecting charges that are due to us, or the fees under which we charge for those services aren't enough to cover the cost of those services. And I know that's challenging with the community to say that, because no one wants to pay more, but the reality is that it's being subsidized if it's not.
Oh, we've had this discussion. I mean, as a contractor, I think they're too low. So
Think what?
I think we're lower.
And
Not enough.
Hopefully we be low next year, do we not?
we do look at the service, our master fee schedule and try to mirror, we can't make a profit per se, so we have to charge cost recovery. But anyway, so that's just, when I saw that, I thought that's an area where we could look at more closely on how we reduce that gap. Because if we had met the budget there, we would be more significantly in the black, so to speak.
Yeah, and it is important to remember too that, we're 2 years ahead of the budget almost, right? And then we're trying to figure out, well, how many charges were impacted, or maybe not impacted, but
Predict what developments are
what
coming.
kind of things do we think are gonna be happening in 2 years, and how many of those do you think we're gonna have? And
Oh, that's why I love it. Just do it conservative.
Yeah.
It's great. I all I'm doing to do is just planning ahead for the next 2 years is okay. Is this budget, when it's audited, going to come in with a major deficit because we didn't have the extra?
right.
Any other questions or comments? Good job. Thank you. This is well done. I mean, I'm
Thank you, Susan.
Well, and it's great to work with Terry again. He's a small staff too, of one, and we've come from a big corporation, and we had trouble being heard, and with Terry, he's so easy to work with, and he's just great, so.
well, when we do the budget planning, you know what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I trust you guys a lot. So,
Thank you.
Well, Susan, thank you for all your hard work
absolutely.
to make this work for us.
Mayor, I want to just acknowledge, to say again, thank you, Terry. Wanted to note, we have a hand raised by a member of the public. It was, I think, in regards to the previous item.
Is it Shannon?
No, it's
Making sure.
Miss Lauren Alexander. I just want to mention, and we are joined by our chief. he's styled on. I just wanted to mention that the agenda, was signed up to receive public comments. But it's your discretion, Mayor, if you want to, one, reopen that item, or, and take public comments on this limited basis. But again, we did indicate that, it'd be in person to speak on items.
It's fine, we can open it up, David, it's only one comment and, you know, it's a small setting here, so. You wanna allow a little.
Do we want to just real quickly, conclude, we'll conclude.
Yes, let's finish with Terry and then we go back.
Okay. Well, Terry, thank you again for joining us today. Next step is to take this to council. Susie's gonna be finalizing your agenda report and the rest of the remaining audit pieces for the audit, and then it'll be distributed to the council by way of the council agenda on Thursday.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
Terry, thank you,
Thanks
Terry.
so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
So,
This,
it's a lot of talk.
Lauren, we acknowledge your hand raised, and you are now up and available to speak.
Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Alexander. I was the project manager that entitled the Alexander Valley Apartments project. I apologize, I'm on here late. I saw the notice from Kevin that it sounded like there were some questions about the TEFRA hearing. I joined as soon as I could, but it sounds like I might have missed the item. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. If the item's closed, we can I can answer questions offline as well.
Yeah, or I can give you a call after and give you a summary of what happened.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Does that work for everybody? Okay.
It does.
All right. All right. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You as well.
Thank you.
Moving on to E3, develop list of project potential revenue measure for November 2024 general election.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Let's go back and look real quick. I think it was our February meeting where we had a discussion. Some more about a presentation by ISOM advisors in regards to a survey of voters about a potential revenue measure or revenue measures, and we looked at the opportunity for either or both a potential sales tax measure. It included a voter survey looking at a 25 a quarter cent, half cent, and a 1 cent increase in local sales tax. And likewise, we also looked at the potential for a parcel tax to fund the several $1 million of public improvements, and kind of focused on parks and police in particular, on public safety. The presentation that was provided to this subcommittee has not since been provided to council. The plan is to bring it forward with a discussion about whether there's interest in establishing or bringing forward for potential consideration a special revenue measure. The recommendation by our bond consultant was to develop a list of potential projects that we also bring to council to support, whether there's or at least for possible consideration to garner whether the voters would support a special revenue measure based on the list of projects. Some projects that have been discussed include additional park projects, a new or at least a revamped public safety or police station. There's also been considerable discussion by council about the need to improve the condition of our asphalt in our streets, and we noted that the Public Works Subcommittee received what's referred to as the PTAC report, showing we've got about a $34 million need in terms of improving the level of service and our pavement condition across the city to what's considered a more acceptable level. And so those are just some potential ideas around the need for, or considering the need for a special revenue measure. There's also some considerations around whether you need a supermajority, it's a 2/3 vote, or a 50+1 vote. Generally, if you're funding a number of projects, you just have to go 50+1. If you're funding a specific project, you get the 2/3 vote. Though on the November election or November ballot, we understand there's it's referred to as option 1, which, if approved, would reduce the threshold for supermajority ballot measures to 55%, so it kind of lowers the criteria. But I guess at this point, just wanted to determine what's the interest in bringing forward the presentation that was previously provided by ICE advisors, and then also to discuss a list of projects that we may want to bring forward. Do we want to focus on, a specific set of road projects? Do we want to look at a park project, or focus in on a public safety project?
Gus, would you like to go first?
Oh, thank you. Well, I think this is long overdue, and I'm getting a little concerned that the clock is ticking, and before you know it, November will be here. All of the projects are well deserved with more financing. But I think the two that pop out at me more than anything is the police station and the pavements. I'm not too concerned about parks. We do have the new open space. We've done some park improvements, and we have some more scheduled. And we have that being funded by, I guess, could be ACT funds. There may be some impact fees down the road of some other developments. So I'd like to see us focus on the public safety and on the street repavings. I think the problem we're gonna have is, if I vote for it, I'm gonna be calling you in 2 weeks, finding out when you're gonna come pave my street. So, I don't know how we let folks know that we're so far behind already, that we're gonna really have to, I guess, gather quite a bit of money before we can jump into projects. But David, if it was a 1/4% sales tax increase, what would that amount to? Offhand?
Well, I think a kind of an easy way to think of it is if it was a 1 cent, we're talking about roughly about 1 million round numbers. So a 1/4 cent would be about 250, 1/2 cent about 500,000, or 3/4. Again, round numbers. We have to. Sales tax is always a moving target a little bit, but it's, I think, for planning purposes, the 1% equates to about $1 million. The benefit of a local tax measure that's put on by the city council, unlike our current sales tax, is that all the revenue that's generated from that goes to the city. Whereas the current sales tax is allocated by the state, and we only get a portion of the tax dollars from retail sales. So that add-on is nice because it's 100% allocated to the entity that approved it.
Yeah, so the tax rate of 8.5. 1% goes to the city, 7.5 go other places. Mhm.
So, I remember Bruce Reuser mentioning at one point that we should be charging a 1% sales tax. But it was a general sales tax, I guess, that if he bought his trucks down in Santa Rosa, we would get 1%. It wasn't confined to the city limits.
That's because in that case, the point, I understand the point of sale, I guess, in his case, because he's buying it here.
It's a destination.
Yeah.
If you have the,
Well, I'm not sure, what kind of tax that is. It was referred to as a sales tax, but if I went down to Hansel Ford and bought a new car, Cloverdale would have a tax line on that.
Cloverdale would get the original 1% that all cities are entitled to. And then any additional that is voter approved, then that would come here too. So, and that's what goes on cars, the additional 1%.
So how do we put that on the ballot initiative? What is it referred to?
That's your sales tax, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a destination sales tax, but it's your sales tax regular. All cars, because we don't have the extra, we don't get it.
Right, so, but
But if we had a 9.5%, I'm so sorry, I cut you off.
that,
If we had a 9.5% sales tax, 2.5% come to the city.
would come to the city, so that could be pretty significant pretty quickly.
Yes.
My question is, are both of those bondable? If we were to do either one, could we bond against that, or would we rather just wait and build it up?
I think that's kind of a policy question. I think you can bond against it as long as there is a solid analysis, financial analysis to support bonding, and then it would, we'd hire a financial analyst to really dial in the amount of revenue and what that would be able to pay in terms of bond principal and interest at the current interest rate environment. So, that would kind of inform us as to what kind of bond amount we could bond against.
Well,
Some of that was addressed in the presentation by ISIM advisors, and I just want to mention that was your, this was the finance meeting in, looks like, November of 2023. So that was November 6th, and included in that is the voter survey results on our bonding capacity. And let me see if during the presentation, you kind
What
of
is it he's looking for on it? Like
the amount we could
Okay.
potentially generate in terms of revenue.
from the 1% destination tax.
Yeah, it's a district tax.
Oh, okay.
So 1% is going to get you about $1 million, but that's not something that the voters wanted.
Well,
Um,
and then the parcel tax for the new
Okay,
police
so-
station, are you talking?
So the bond is approved by authorizing 23,500,000 bonds. Average of 1.4 per year until repaid. So it's about 23 million. Is from, if you do the bonds. And that was for, let's see if that's looking which one that one is.
I think that's parcel tax.
The parcel.
Yeah,
It just says that, yeah, under the bond measures.
if, for instance, we looked at a 1/4% sales tax, it would generate over the proposed term of the measure, 3.4 million in revenue. So that's what a financial consultant would look at, say, we have to pay, we want the revenue, but we're also gonna have to pay interest on that. So what can we pay? How long would it take to pay the bond back and for how much?
And I don't want to see us looking at 1/4%. We need more than that, David.
The results of the survey came back that a sales tax of 0.5% was right on the border. And so I think that that's one that's feasible at 0.5%.
Right.
And it was at 47% said yes on that, then you need 50 plus 1.
Well, and I hear what you're saying, Todd. I just think, we have to do more to educate, what is the city gonna look like without a decent revenue stream coming in? And I mean, we have to give some assurances that it's not going in salaries and luxury costs for staff or anything else. It's going to the root of what we're trying to accomplish, new streets and public safety.
So if you add up for a 3/4%, there was 40.5% said yes, 2.6 leaned yes, 5.2% undecided. So that gets us to 49% right there. The no's were at 49%. There's absolutely no way at 3/4. So those are the ones that we would have to break them out, see who they are, and be willing to walk the streets and bang on every door to get this, because this is what fixes your streets. There is no money in the budget. This is what fixes your streets. This is what's going to help you in your parks and open spaces or improve your public safety. That's where that money would go. And that's just the sales tax portion I'm looking at here.
Right.
Well, Susie, and just for the group in general, if we do 0.75% or 0.5% sales tax, we could still do that destination, right?
Yep.
Because it's important that we get some of that automobile sales revenue out of Santa Rosa.
Right.
And up in, Buchanan.
Yeah, if you have a district tax, it comes back to you.
Right. Yeah, just for reference, according to the analysis getting done by ISM advisors, if we enacted and was approved a 0.5 cent sales tax, it would generate approximately 6.9 million in revenue. Again, that's over the life
Oh,
of
length of it.
and so that's, I'm kind of what I'm pointing to is the potential to bond against it. I think that's how they would look, a bond advisor would look at the total amount of revenue that would generate and determine what we could bond against. The other option would be to collect that revenue, just, I mean, we would still collect it regardless, and when with bonds, we'd end up have to pay off the bond principal and interest. Otherwise, you could do pay as you go. So under that scenario, if we collected roughly 500,000 per year, and we are already budgeting this next year, we're planning to recommend to council increasing the amount for streets and roads from 200 to 300,000. So just as an example, if we had a 0.5 cent sales tax was generating 500,000, we continue to budget 300,000, we're looking at about $800,000 a year. I think that's a very doable scenario, both from the ability of staff to kind of do a project once a year and make progress.
That's like 2 to 4 roads a year, basically. Subbed out. And depending in smaller ones, you can, you're about 100,000 a road for a small road.
Yeah, I think under a bond scenario, what there's usually going to be a obligation to complete the work within a certain amount of time.
There it is.
And therefore we would have to we'd have to get to work, maybe, with the small staff, just dedicating
Right.
the team to just doing road projects, basically, so.
Are you saying there'd be a sunset on that sales tax?
No, well, that's something that the council would have to decide in terms of placing the measure. Would this be, do you want a certain term on and that's something that I think Mr. Isom would kind of give you advice as to whether that's gonna meet with voter approval or not, or is the term, if you have a term on it, is it going to get more voter support? So that's kind of a policy call. But it seems like, just based on, again, the survey results that Mr. Isom provided, that a 0.5 cent would work. It's a little bit of a stretch. We're right at that threshold, but with a little voter education, that could be something that we might be able to garner support. Recognizing when we did do the survey, it kind of covered the host of a lot of other activities that could be financed in conjunction with the potential parcel tax. And we were kind of looking at two things. One is sales tax tends to, because of the dollar amounts, tends to support operations. And in that regard, that's where, you might suggest that fund, street maintenance, street improvements, where parcel taxes tend to focus on capital improvements and make investments in major public facilities. And that's where you look at things like a new park, a new.
You mean
city
the
hall.
situation where bond is.
Right, yeah. A general obligation bond or parcel tax. And it seems like residents are less favorable to a parcel tax to fund operations, but if you see,
Right.
what we're building,
You-
stick to
you-
bricks.
Right. You see a product for your taxes.
Plus, there's gonna be that other, parcel tax on the ballot for the housing, the affordable housing. So if we're coming in with one, and they're coming in with one, people might,
Do you think this is really going to pass?
if they've done a lot of
That's statewide.
polling. No, it's the 9 Bay Area counties.
That's a fun.
Oh, it's crazy money.
Well, we can't let somebody else's decision dictate
Yeah,
whether we need money or not. I mean, we need revenue.
maybe go for a higher percentage, but then put a sunset. If they are, it's more money now, but it's gonna, that's for Greg, I see to figure out.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is,
Okay.
it's also how much work do we have put into this? Because we're really, if we try to go for a 3/4%, we're gonna wear our shoes out.
Yeah.
And several town halls and, what's that, I'm sorry?
And a parcel tax, right?
And the parcel tax, so that's the next part that we should talk about,
Yeah.
is that one is, when we're looking at the parcel taxes, to get to the 6 to 7% or 2/3, we're pushing it at $50 per 100,000.
And what would that give us? $50 per 100,000?
I think it was right in the 20 million range, if I remember correctly. And so what we were trying to do is do things for public safety. Remember, we're never going to get enough for a new police station. It's just, it's what I see. And so it's going to have to be money that remodels and modernizes what we own, I think. Yes, I'm just trying to be a realist with what we saw the costs were when Joe was here, and they're up 30% from that.
But if we could get that outside group to offer the initiative, we wouldn't need 2/3. We can do it on simple majority, right?
Yeah, if we had an outside group to do it, absolutely. And if you had an outside group to do it, your $60 puts you at 49% plus a few leaning, so with education, we could get that to pass, but we need an outside group to do it.
Just food for thought, I think in terms of timing, I mean, we're a little constrained, and we still have plenty of time to bring forward proposed ballot measure for the council to consider whether to add it to the general election, and we're gonna do that based on the direction last council meeting with regards to the urban growth boundary. One way to maybe approach it is to, in the near term, we know roads are a significant issue. Seem to resonate with voters, could bring forward for this election, the November election, proposed sales tax measure, but identify and be a part of your plan to bring forward parcel tax at maybe the 2026 elections. And during that intervening time, we can go to work on a couple of things. One would be greater engagement with the community. I know Chief Parker, who's already going to be working on kind of doing a mixer and doing some outreach with the community just to get them up to speed on the status of the police station, the tours and actually start building that group of volunteers that could work to support and promote a ballot measure to pay for a police station. And during any time we could be looking at the designs that we prepared to see if there's opportunities to reduce the cost of being able to bring the station forward. And so it gives us about a 2-year time window to work on that. So that would be kind of breaking this down into 2 stages. One would be kind of the sales tax in the near term with plans for a parcel tax in 2026. So that's one option. The other option is we can place them both on the ballot. I think from what I understand from Mr. Ison, that to have 2 measures on the ballot may dilute the support for those. So, but that's something I think we want to ask him and clarify if that's the case or not.
Yeah, I want him to clarify that because working with him so much in the past, it's always been, if they're gonna vote yes on one, they're going to vote yes on the other.
Okay.
And so if you're doing it, you either just throw it all at the wall. And because otherwise you're gonna be walking for the next year, 3 years. And people are gonna get, okay, I'm paying a tax, why did they give me another tax? I'm not gonna do it.
It's hard to know, it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense, it's,
Absolutely, you
don't
don't,
say there's too many now.
that's why we do these surveys to, you know, take the temperature of the water here.
I mean, the other options we can do, you know, it's, the survey is not that old, but, you know, sometimes, like Kevin referred to BAFA, they're doing local surveys, and they're kind of checking in more frequently with the voters, just to, because voters' opinions can change quickly.
But, you know, we could be like the county, and the way they do it is they put it on the ballot. If it fails, it's on the next one, and then it's, and then just keep going. Yeah, and, I mean, if we put 2 on this particular ballot and 1 fails, it goes on the next one. If they both fail, they go on the next one. I don't know.
I think we talk to Greg and we make him, I'm sorry, Isom, and make him figure this out for sure. I think that I mean, if we're gonna go for both, we're either at the 50 mark or 60 mark on the GO bond. Go for all of it, because in the survey, you're only off 2-3% difference of who's voting yes, who's voting no, and there's a lot of leaners. So it's just education. It's going out there and walking the streets. The sales tax, if there's at least 0.5%, maybe 3/4, am I wrong? I mean, go ahead, Justin, so you know numbers way better.
No, I was gonna say, this is the time of the year to do it. Look,
Yeah,
I mean, the city, I think, and Shirley, you'd be better in touch than I am, but I think the city has a favorable rating from its constituents out there. You know, we did the dog
Yeah.
park, we improved on all the parks. You know, there's an open communication. I think now's the time to ask.
it's
People
very
like
positive
this.
right now. That's the message too, Gus, is look at, we're doing all this stuff for the city. You gotta put your money where your mouth is if you want things,
If you want
because we
something
only do
safe.
so much. How many times do we hear about the streets? How many times do we hear about, don't let the sheriff's department come in here? Well, you know what? We just did a whole bunch of stuff with the same amount of money, but they got a building that's gonna fall down and kill them all if there's a 2.0 earthquake.
Yeah, well, and the thing that gets me is, you know,
Like the rest of them?
you know, the thing that gets me as a taxpayer is when I'm voting for money to go to new streets or a police station, and all of a sudden, nothing's being done. And it's going into the general fund and being used to fund regular expenses. And that's annoying. That's annoying. I think people want to see almost like a silo established, like we did with the with the marijuana, you know, where we have a panel that reviews the tax. You know, once a quarter or once a year, they come in and make sure we're spending the money properly. So, but, you know.
So let's have. Next one's in May.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
We have,
Can't say.
we should probably schedule I can see if Mr. Ison's available for the second meeting in April, which would be
Yeah.
April 24th. And want to present the original survey with some recommendations on proposed tax measures, which a couple of decisions would be, what do we want to, for what purpose do we want to place these measures on the ballot? And then at what level? So there's, you know, with the parcel tax, what was looked at was 3 scenarios, $45, $50, and $60 respectively for 100,000 of assessed valuation. It seems like 50 is kind of the sweet spot, and we could get 56%. And then with regards to sales tax, it's the quarter, half, 3/4, and 1. It seems like there's interest somewhere between 1/2 cent and 3/4. So we could lay out those options.
Right. And then, I'm sorry,
I was gonna say, we should ask him if he thinks it's good to take both at the same time.
absolutely, that's the first question is,
Yeah,
one or both?
One or both.
And if so, what amounts does he recommend? Because I know where I'm at, Gus knows where he's at. I wanna hear what he has to say, because Greg boasts about his 98% success rate, and he won't take it if he's gonna lose.
right.
And I like that. He's never lost. He stopped me in the middle of one over here at the school district, said, don't you dare do that this year. And we held out for 2 years, and he said I couldn't get it again, but I got it anyways. But moral of the story is you listen to Greg, he knows what he's talking about.
And the kind of, the question as he posted, when we did the survey was to improve the city of Cloverdale, which includes, upgrade parks and open spaces, renovate civic center, include city hall, police station, redevelop downtown plaza, and invest in renewable energy projects. So is there, do we want to stick with that narrative, or is there, any, what we didn't say with this was, in terms of the sales tax piece, focus on local roads.
So that'll be, I mean, in my opinion, that's the one thing you put on there for the sales tax is to focus on roads and infrastructure.
Yeah.
But it can also be listed on both the bond and sales tax for roads and infrastructure. When you do these, you really want to make sure that there's general language to cover anything you spend a dollar on, because people will call you one. So, if we go out and we put in a stop sign and they said, that wasn't a road, it's literally like that, so it's.
Well, how about this? I'll coordinate with Mr. Isom about a presentation at the April 24th council meeting. He'll walk council through the previous voter survey, and then we'll ask him to answer, if we're gonna move forward, do we move forward with one of them or both of them? If it's one of them, which ones? And at what amounts, and any guidance he can offer in terms of the ballot measure language. Perfect.
If he wants to bump it up to the 10th, bump it up to the 10th, I don't care, but we need to get the ball rolling. He says we're right on track with time. He's not too worried about that part, but. Surely.
Well, I just want to emphasize, what Gus has said too, is that it's really important to make sure that you educate the community. And when you put these ballot measures out and things, it's all in political voting language. Put more into it, make people feel like this is your town, this is what we're looking at. And I don't care if parcel or whatever, I mean, the people are complaining about how things are so costly. And I don't know, I mean, more taxing, especially the parcel thing, I don't know. But if you're going to do the sales tax, which I think is really important, please educate the community, meet with them if you have to.
Sure.
We'll have somebody, we'll have individual come and have you guys come in and talk
Do
about it
multiple
more.
town halls. That's where they'll go this year.
Yeah.
If we put both these on the ballot.
And just, and I think once they really know what this is for and you're not doing this ballot talk, I think it will go.
And the city of Cloverdale is one of the few, I think maybe the last one that does not have a district tax already. All of the other cities, maybe Sebastopol, all the other ones.
She add that to it.
Yeah.
I mean, give them a
Yeah.
picture of what's going on and in Spanish.
Absolutely.
Spanish.
All right.
Direction noted. We'll coordinate with Mr. Isom on next steps. We'll bring this forward.
Are there any standing items that we need to go through?
So Mayor, if it's okay, I'll just run through them real quick. We got Measure P cannabis report. Again, these are all standing reports. The water revenue tracking worksheet and the grants. Grants gets updated about every other month, so if you check it, you won't necessarily see an update every month, but pretty much every other month, we do a major update. So the first three items understanding are just reports in your packet.
And also the first two this month, because of that it fell on the first. And the payment wasn't even due until today. It's the same as last month, and same with water, the billing was done at the last day of the month, so we didn't have those numbers. They're together.
Right. And so there's an update on finance. Is there anything you wanted to report out on?
No, we're working obviously on budget and audit and just trying to. It's consuming days.
It's burnout, let's call it. Burnout.
It's okay.
All right. Anything else, David, with R3C or code enforcement?
Only thing on Russian River Reuse Collaborative, we, council did approve a, letter of support to the town of Windsor for their biochar facility, which is a project that's part of the R3C program. And just last week, we signed a letter in support of their grant application for federal funding for that, the same facility as well. So the folks right now, I think this town winds have been leading up, they're really focused on trying to get this biochar facility approved.
And then under the code enforcement, have we had any movements on the trailers, the ordinance?
That matter is gonna go to planning and sustainability, I think, was to
So we're gonna look at the code and potentially amend the code to make it more realistic about what people are doing and, so it's sent to the plan.
Have you had a chance to drive by?
Pardon?
Have you had a chance to drive by there?
Yeah, I drove by. I don't think it's too bad, but yeah, it's just fine.
It's an area, the parking, RV parking is something I think we need to develop some amendments to the existing code language to address the existing language is pretty challenging for many of our residents. We have a high proportion of our population that have boats, RVs, or other types of recreational vehicles. And meeting the zoning, the screening requirements are pretty challenging.
They can't afford this storage.
Right. It's expensive.
Well, I mean, in some cases, it's not even because of, they don't have them in storage. It may be folks who bring them out for the summer months because they camp frequently or they take trips, and we get complaints about those. So it's a challenge.
Well, and the hard part is it's complaint driven. So my neighborhood, everybody could leave their trailers alone, and then one other neighborhood, they have a park on their side yard and they could call them. So, and I mean, I know there's one, I won't even tell the direction that it's in, but it's here in town. And it's parked across the yard, across the sidewalk and into the street with hoses coming out both ends. And I'm like,
And the room to shift it out.
and the room is shifted out. Absolutely. And I'm like, I know what's going on there. I know another one that's in a guy's yard, the yard's built up 4 feet. I'm like, how are you gonna get that trailer out of there if somebody decided to do a little violation? So it needs to just be fair, and it needs to be something that's more accepting to the community is different now. I mean,
You know, there's also things like the two down by Ace Hardware that sit up on Hillview. Those things haven't moved in, I couldn't tell you how long. I mean, that's not I don't view that as a policy violation. I view it as a violation of what's already there. I mean,
Those ones that we're looking at is storage on private property, right? So there's the street ones, which are the police.
Yeah.
Right, and then this one, which is.
well, that's the hard part is if you really wanted to beat this, you could park your trailer in the middle of the road instead of in your driveway.
Move it
And
in.
move it an inch
That's right.
every 3 days after they ticketed or cited you.
but that whole movement an inch has to be changed. I don't think, but that's.
They say it's a significant amount, but that could literally be, you move it a foot, take a picture, move it a foot, take a picture. It's ridiculous. It's a cat and mouse game. You go park in front of the neighbor's house that calls them, you can do all sorts of things. Yeah. So it's, you know, the cop, I know how this stuff works and they call me about it too, so anyways. Any other major code enforcement snafus that we don't know about yet?
No, I'll let you know if something comes in. I mean, I know it's a grenade that goes off in the neighborhoods. We have to deal with the outcome, so. They've been pretty good about letting us know when they get new ones and asking us how we want to proceed. So that's kind of what we asked them to do, and so.
Next one you have listed as elections as an update.
Really, just the update here is that the council has given direction to staff to put a measure on the ballot regarding amendment of the urban growth boundary. And we're working on that. We'll be bringing that forward. And then obviously to discuss whether to add a revenue measure.
Anything that's cheap on there still?
He said he had to go, he texted me, said he had to go to a class.
Okay. So he didn't give you an update, did he, with anything?
I have a brief verbal update. We have two vacancies in police officer positions. One candidate is set to complete the academy in June. So that would be considered a lateral hire. And would enter our field training program. There's a second candidate that's currently in background. Again, a local resident, who would, if they complete background, would start the academy in July. And the anticipated graduation, again, assuming they're successful, would be December, start field training in January of next year. We've received notice from our community service officer that they are planning to retire in November. The chief is proposing and
What
we're,
was that?
Teresa.
In
Is
November?
in November. So it's, it's well after budget adoption, so we're looking at that, at the possibility of replacing that position with a full-time officer. It comes with some cost implications, but in looking at the salary differences, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it brings what would be the 11th officer. The chief is also just to support our succession strategy within the police department. It would like to establish 2 corporal positions. This is a intermediate step between sergeant and patrol officer. So it's one step up above patrol officer. So kind of an incremental increase in salary, and again, helping to create that succession plan. And it kind of sets the corporal up to be, in line to become a sergeant. So we're looking at that, what the cost would be, and we're going to discuss that as part of budget. We're also expecting the retirement of our records clerk. Linda Webb is announced her retirement in July. So again, right after the budget, I wish, there's some desire for overlap and training, but it's kind of difficult because it's right at the timing and how we do that. But we're probably going to be looking at reclassing that position a little bit, and reassigning some duties. So that's still in evaluation phase. That also used to be the same position that oversaw was supervisor for dispatch. So we'll be looking at possibly kind of reducing the salary for that position, and to be in line. We're doing the kind of market survey. It seems like it should be adjusted downward. And then we're continuing to, council approved the second addendum to the SRO, so we're working on fulfilling that. And obviously we've filled the detective role with Officer Benoni. So that's a police update for you.
Thank you. See, under future agenda items, you have the K9 unit feasibility, so that's something we probably should wait for Chris our chief to be here.
Yeah, we're currently evaluating that. I think to Councilmember Walter, I think there was an inquiry about whether the K9 unit would be something supported by the school district, and I think what we heard is that it don't necessarily desire K9 unit at the school, but it might be case specific.
I'm sorry, what? They're not interested.
At least in terms of having a daily visit by the K9 unit.
Well, no, I meant more or less on the weekend, just to sniff out the lockers and figure out what's going on in there. There we said there's such a problem with marijuana and everything else. I don't know.
But we'll come back with a report on that. We'll work on.
Also under report, or I guess it's kind of under the good of the order here with the police, their ALPR system is working out well. Had more auto burglaries this past weekend, and they've narrowed it down to a few cars, and it's because of the cameras.
Out of town,
They're going to be from out of town, I think.
huh?
I had some people checking in town for a couple cars, but yeah, police department's
Good.
focusing. So it's nice to see that those are a great investment. Multiple stolen cars, multiple burglars, multiple stolen plates.
Yeah, a number of the other cities have established them as well, so.
They're all starting to come through now. It's like all of a sudden I'm like, I love
They
it.
kind of sync up, I think, on their data side, so you
Yeah.
can see, in our case, being located on 101 or adjacent to 101, some of the criminals kind of follow a transportation corridor, so kind of helps hone in on who some of these folks might, where they're conducting their activities.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Having those activities here in Cloverdale.
Yes, ma'am. This past weekend,
See, it's not my place before.
it hasn't made it out yet,
Okay.
but they don't always tell.
Thank you, that was the bottom line.
Yeah, sometimes when things.
Further
are,
investigations. and
Yeah,
things like
under
that.
investigation, don't want to disclose too much information, because criminals are smart. too, so.
They do read the paper.
They do.
They do. They look for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, but it tells people, and you can, like me, I'm just asking, like, this is happening here?
Well, I would recommend everyone locks their vehicles,
Whoa.
especially if they have
Take your
trucks,
cameras out, and your keys.
especially if they have trucks or any type of truck boxes and things like that.
So just one thing, with your permission,
Please.
Susie, do you think after the budget, I'm sorry, after the audit report is finalized, you could come out with a, I forget what you call it, financial statement, the trifold?
Oh, the budget at a glance,
What's it called?
the budget at a glance?
Thank you,
Yeah, I can do that after the budget's complete.
okay,
I'll do
Yeah.
it once the budget-
that'd be good.
Yeah,
I know that goes a long way with folks.
okay. It's usually like July or August. before
Okay. All right.
I have it.
Any other future agenda items you might want?
Okay.
Any future agenda items you guys can think of? There was nothing else from council, so with that, meeting adjourned 3:06.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone. You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
we going home?